Welcome to the Roost Podcast, brought to you by Buckeye Bowhunter. And now, your host, Josh Grund.
What is going on, guys? It is Josh here with Buckeye Bowhunter, and it has been a minute since we've been on here talking to you guys. Life gets busy, and deer season's over now here in Ohio. It is, I think, February 11th when we're recording this right now. So deer season's been over for a minute, and we're just kind of recouping. And I got John here with me today to talk a little bit about, what we're going to be doing here in the meantime, between this dead space from now till
Well, welcome to 2024. 2023 is long gone.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
So we're kind of looking into the future, right?
Yep.
What's 2024 going to do for us?
Exactly. And I kind of want to just talk about, this dead space between now and turkey season and what we plan on doing, how we're going to, take what we learned last year, implement it at this time of year if it's possible, and how that's going to make us better hunters next year, John. So I know you got some plans up at the land here.
Yeah, my laundry list from last year that I chipped away at. I'm excited for 2024 now, and the list is ultra long. It's grown, but I'm excited about it. I got a lot of stuff that I want to accomplish preseason to set myself up for success, come this fall, this deer season. Like I said, the laundry list has grown. I've made some purchases specifically for, my little private piece. I got 15 chestnut trees and 5 persimmons on order. They'll be arriving this spring. And like
15
I said,
chestnut trees. That's pretty cool. How many?
Yeah.
You're gonna plant those in the spring? How long do those take to start?
They said
dropping?
We should start seeing them producing 4 to 5 years. So really not that long.
That's pretty quick compared to like an oak tree or something. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will be planting oak trees. I don't know that I'll be alive to see those drop, but
sure you will. You got plenty of time.
Maybe that's next year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for you listeners who maybe this is your first podcast, John has 80 acres or something up in northern Ohio, and he's really getting into the the land management side of deer hunting for the last few years. I've known John for, I don't know, 9 years, 8 years now, something like that. We started working together a long time ago, and John's gone from like a gun hunter, gun season, to this like hardcore bow hunter, land management guy, like completely different. And it's been really cool to watch him like grow like that for this whole the whole time I've known him, and he's just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this stuff, just from trial and error and learning on his own. But you did a bunch of TSI work last year, cutting down trees and stuff on your property, part of your timber management plan.
Yep.
So how do these trees, these new like chestnuts and stuff, how does that all fit into that? Like, and how did that start? What was the point of that?
So we had a big swath of woods that were white ash, and they didn't make it through the emerald ash borer. So we had a big chunk of woods that was dead and barren. And working with my forester, we came up with a woodland stewardship plan, and part of that plan was to repopulate that area. And, with whitetails on my mind constantly, what better than to plant some chestnuts and give that a whirl? Um, and again, with a good return on investment, if within 5 years I've got, uh, you know, 15 acres and I've got pockets of chestnuts here and there, it should be pretty good hunting.
Yeah, like so what's your plan on like how you're gonna plant them, or like do you have like a strategic idea behind like any rhyme or
So
reason to
yeah,
that?
they need to be planted. I think it said 40 feet apart, but they're not self-pollinating, so you got to plant like a cluster, and keep
Oh.
them within a decent range of each other so they can cross-pollinate.
So
Um,
do they have like, are they the type of tree that has like an actual male and a female tree?
I
Or are they
think it's the
different than that?
flowers.
The
Yeah,
flowers, okay.
yeah.
Interesting.
So yeah, I'm gonna go out there, uh, put some pockets in, understanding that uh, I'd say a percent is not gonna make it.
I
But I'm
gotcha.
thinking I'm gonna put some in like the lower lying areas, and then on a couple of ridges, put a pocket of them.
Do they
Um,
need a certain type of soil, like well drained or
yeah, like all of them. It's like well drained, sandy to loamy
sandy,
soil.
loamy
It's like
soil?
okay,
Yeah. Yeah, good luck. So,
yeah,
so more specific, like it's kind of cool. Like you're essentially making a food plot with trees, and trees that are going to be
yes,
dropping actual food within like 5 years, hopefully, right? Which
hopefully,
is
yeah.
a lot different than like even apple trees take longer than that, don't they? To drop apples, or maybe seven
Depending on the
years, something like
species,
that.
yeah.
Yeah. So that's kind of cool, but like more specific, like if you're thinking about, when those things are dropping and you go in with a stand on your back, like where are you putting those trees in relation to like, you know,
So I
the swamp and the food plot you got going on and all that stuff, and how's that gonna work, I guess.
Yeah, so I think I'm gonna try and set up for almost every occasion. That's my thought process. I got 15 of them, and I got five persimmons. Um, I think I want to put a cluster for each wind that I know I can get to. So having good access with the right wind, different winds. Not setting myself for um, we've got predominantly westerlies. Okay, so I have two clusters for that, but the other ones need to be set up for something else, for a north, a south. I don't know that I'm going to set one up for an east
Yeah,
because
we don't get that too often.
we don't get that too often. Um, but kind of using my property and the terrain features to set myself up. So a way to get in there and get set up, whether it's, it may just be like a little box blind, or, a pop-up blind. But having the ability to get in without them knowing and getting out.
So I see having these as like you hear about those little like bow kill food plots that people make like on the way
Yeah.
to like a destination food source or something like this. So if you're, next year your food plot is ramping and roaring, having these set up back in the woods. So like just to explain to the viewers, John's got a food plot like kind of centrally located in this 80 acres. There's a lot of like field and like buildings and stuff towards the front of the property where you normally park, but the food plot is back behind that, and then it drops down into this giant swamp. There's a ton of bedding, and down along there is where you had a lot of it select cut, right? And that's where you're planning
Yes.
on planting some of these. Um,
Yep.
I just see if you got a couple different clusters down in there, and it's and didn't you say that some of these like their different variations will drop at different times of the year, so you can kind of
Yeah.
plan out like based
Yep.
on explain
Yeah.
that a
And
little bit because
I
that's kind of
so
cool.
so on these chestnuts, you can pick a drop period, kind of a rough estimate on a month. So there's early dropping species. There's, pretty much for every month, even going into December. I ended up picking the early November, late October time frame dropping.
Why would you pick those dates,
Why?
John?
Yeah.
That doesn't make no sense. That's funny.
Just for the thought process of, like you said, having it almost as a kill plot or a killing spot. So once these things start dropping, I know I'm not gonna sit on these. I'm not gonna sit on these trees for a whole week. I don't.
This is what I see. Yeah, I don't think so either. But this is how I see you killing a buck.
Shot. Yeah.
There's gonna be scrapes, like big scrapes, or a big scrape under one of these, and it's gonna be dropping late October when these bucks start scraping a lot, and they're kind of still in their home ranges, still going to food, but they're like checking does and letting does know they're around. That's going to be a spot where you got a camera, and you're gonna catch a buck coming back to bed, stopping there to check a scrape because it's gonna be a hot doe area. That for I don't know how many chestnuts this thing drops, but I imagine it's probably not going to be a ton for a while, and it may be hot for like 4 days.
Yep.
But you're going to see on your cameras, like, this is the spot right now, and it's going to be between that food plot and between that swamp and that bedding and that edge. I think that's going to be golden, especially because, so me and John did hunt down in this little select cut area where he's talking about dropping the chestnuts last early season, and it was kind of thick in there already. It grew up pretty thick over the summer because the canopy is like wide open now. But I see the next year or two, what's really going to be cool is you're not only going to have chestnuts in there, you're going to have a ton of browse, like a ton of browse, and it's going to essentially be an extension of your food plot that can hide deer, I think. So I think it'll be a really cool experiment and thing to watch, and make sure you have a couple cameras in there because like I said, you're gonna have bucks bedding in there because does are gonna be bedding in there. Yeah, it's gonna be cool, dude.
Yeah,
hopefully that you don't lose them all, or they make it,
Yeah.
But you lose them, buy some more, try again.
Yeah, trial and error until you start figuring it out. And that's kind of how I've been handling this over the last, 8 years, is trying something and trial and error till you get it right,
A lot of YouTube, right? A lot of YouTube at work.
A lot of YouTube, a lot of, unfortunate money wasted, but then sometimes success,
That's actually a really good point, John. And I don't think, for somebody who has their own land and kind of wants to get into this stuff, that's one thing that's always kept me away from it. Not the fact, I don't own my own land. I have gotten permission from property owners to, do some management stuff in the past, but I've never done it really, and I've never gotten into it just because of the money factor, right? And it's a big thing, but you've done it, and it hasn't been so expensive for you, right? You've done it a little bit on a budget, I'd say, compared to some guys, so can you talk on that? How is it that intimidating to start?
I'm not throwing my mortgage at it, I'm doing within my own means. But there's always, multiple ways to skin a cat, if you want to do a little food plot, you can get it done with a backpack sprayer and throw and grow. You can figure it out. And then, since you're into it, keep your eyes open, right? So I got a cultipacker off a farmer on Facebook Marketplace, and I got it for, $100. And I went and picked it up, and he threw it on my truck, and, now I've got a cultipacker. Once you decide on doing something, you can kind of finesse your way into it. Like I said, there's always multiple ways of doing things. Yeah, and I just, found out what works for me.
Interesting. Like, I know you've probably done a lot of trial and error with the food plot
There's been some failures,
over the years. You've been doing this
but
food plot for what, 5 years now? Are you on your fifth year
yeah,
coming up?
this will be year 5. But when you do succeed, the gratification is unbelievable. I think on year 3, I had a bunch of radishes, and I was sitting on, in the woods, maybe 100 yards, but I could see into the food plot. And I couldn't tell you how gratifying it was to watch, 3 does walk out there and start pulling radishes out and just gobbling them down. And, I felt really good, Wow,
Yeah.
it worked. And they're really using it. And it was just a really good feel-good moment.
Well, let's talk about this real quick too, and that we can go back to the TSI stuff if we have more to talk about. But when it comes to like your food plot and hunting it, because I think I have seen a mentality shift in how you use it since you started building it, and I know, that's your 80 acres. I know it butts up to some other stuff, but like you essentially hunt that 80 acres every time you hunt most of the time, so you got to be super careful about your access, your entry, if you're pressuring deer compared to a lot of these, public land guys who are going in and burning spots and they're not worried about it because they got more public land to go hunt, or whatever. Or guys who don't hunt as often, maybe. Like, I don't see you really ever hunting over the food plot. Is that correct?
I rarely sit on it. It sounds counterintuitive to put all this work and get it to be a success and then not sit on it. But a couple years ago, I learned this lesson. I'd sit on it a lot, and you would notice the deer wouldn't come out where you're sitting. They learn. It was frustrating. Oh,
You probably
so
see it on your trail cameras too, right? They
Oh
enter
yeah,
at
they'll
different
come
times.
out and you'll see them look up and where a permanent stand is, and they'll just stand and stare, and then they'll finally let go and walk, continue on with their day. Um, and I just of late I've just not sat on it, but I've noticed where they'd come in and where they're going, and I'd get them on their way in or on their way out. Um,
But you're
Doing
not
my
actually
best.
pressuring the actual food plot.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And that's
And I've got
important, man. Like a lot of people don't think about that, It's always this thing where it's like, hunt bedding in the morning or in the woods in the morning or whatever and hunt food in the evening. And I understand that mentality if you just want to like shoot a doe and like, maybe burn that spot or something, go for it. But I hunt a lot of agricultural land, and I've always like not really, my dad always said, he said, if you want to see deer, you go sit on the edge of a field. If you want to kill a big buck,
let me interrupt real quick.
yeah, go ahead.
My food plot is only an acre and a half, if
Well,
that. Sometimes it's only three-quarters of an acre. So we're not talking, a 10-acre bean field.
yes,
Um,
true.
it's small,
Yeah, and that makes a difference, if I'm on a 100-acre soybean field or something like that, like you can get away with a little more. But it is important to think about when you're getting out, right? Because I have slowly gravitated to really like hunting those transition areas that give me an easy way out in the evening. So if, just like you're saying, trying to kill them deer on the way into the food plot, because what happens is those deer are only spending a very short amount of time in those transition areas. And if you kill one or you don't kill one, hopefully the wind's good and they walk right past you. If you're out on the edge of that field and 15 deer pile into it or 10 deer pile into it and it gets dark, well, you're screwed, man. If you don't got somebody to come bump them off with a four-wheeler or something like that, you're going to pressure those deer. So that's something, unless it's like, just going in kamikaze style, going to, all for broke or something like that. Most of the time,
Yeah,
if you're
yeah.
hunting the edge of a field, you're going to be pressuring it when you leave. Like that field where I killed that big buck on this year, in Ohio on the Frank farm, I hunted that field, just because of where the property lines are. You're usually pretty close to the edge of the field, and I have to walk out of that field. I hunted that twice or 3 times this year, and every time I left, I have to walk out the edge of that field. I bumped 7 or 8 deer after dark, and it just, and every time, and my trail camera photos dwindled less and less and less. So,
yeah,
hunting your food plot. Yeah, go ahead.
The other thing with hunting in that transition zone, in the woods, maybe 75 yards or 100 yards, 150 yards, but being able to see the field, you're always trying to play the numbers game and increase your odds with connecting with the deer. When you're sitting on that field edge in the midst of a season, that magic hour, if you're sitting on the edge of the field, yes, you get a little bit more light, so you can hunt a little bit later. But when you kind of think about it, what is that magic hour? Really, it's that last 15 minutes. But if you're tucked into that woods, that last 15 minutes is really maybe 45.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
It gets dark at 5:30. You're gonna have a better chance at maybe 4:45 of something walking through, and you'll see it if you try it. You sit in that transition zone, you may look up the edge of that field, and you'll see deer starting to filter, but then they're just gonna hang.
They're not gonna enter that field yet. Yeah,
they're not gonna go into the field. They just wait, and then that last 15 minutes, boop, they'll all pop out. It's wild. You sit on the edge of a field, and you're like, nothing. I'm sitting here. And then the last 15 minutes, you're like, oh my God, they're everywhere.
Yeah.
So,
but they've been huddled up. That's a transition. They've been huddled up to the edge of that field for the last 40 minutes, like you're saying. So you're putting yourself in a longer time frame to get deer in front of you, which is what I like. And also they're going to leave before you have to get down, which is a giant bonus as well. And if you want to kill big bucks, guys, if you want to kill a 4 or 5 year old deer, I mean, it happens. Like, people do it every year. They kill them on the edge of a field, but it's just not. It's not a high odds thing. Like hunting a scrape on the edge of a field.
When are they doing that? When are they doing it? I mean, during the rut probably, and that buck's cruising the edge of that tree line.
Yep.
He's forgotten about living. He's
exactly
his girlfriend.
Yep. Or it's happening on, that first week or something, if they can catch a buck and they can catch a green bean field or something like that.
Yeah.
You can have success that way. That's a way to, do it. But your best odds are going to be, for the majority of people who are hunting, the parts of the season that everybody's in the woods, right? The rut. Yeah. You don't want to really be, or, late October, mid-October, you don't want to be on the edge of a field unless you're just doe hunting, But those big bucks are going to hold up in cover. They're going to sit there. They're going to watch all those other deer enter the field before they pop out. I say that, but then the deer I killed this year was on the edge of a field, and he was the first deer in the field.
Well, that's okay. We're not pigeonholing our tactics to one way or another. We're just trying to increase our odds, and what you see, you adapt to it.
It's about the sign, right? You hunt where the sign's at.
Where the sign is at, exactly.
And where I killed that buck, he took his time, but the sign was just like undeniable, dude.
Mm-hmm.
And that field is very tucked back. It's very hidden from any roads or anything like that. So he's not pressured. He's not seeing any other hunters really. There's another guy that hunts the property up from there, but that's a little kind of specific situation. But to be honest, I didn't expect to kill that deer that night either. So, I mean, you never know. You never know. But yeah, follow the sign. But most of the time, the sign is going to be in those transition areas, and the sign out on the edge of those fields are going to be, nighttime stuff. But not to take a tangent so far away from TSI. I don't know how we got here. TSI
no,
food plot.
that kind of leads into, I'm going to head out and hopefully you can make it the next couple of weeks, the end of February, early March. Going to get down there, going to grab the chainsaw.
Yeah, hold on. Let me cut you off real quick. This is how John does things so cheap, guys. He he hires his buddies. He says, "You want to hunt here? You better come do some work." So take that little nugget of.
I'll provide a couple of cold beers.
Yeah, there you go.
We're gonna get to work.
Yeah, exactly. So no, it's always a good time.
Yeah, but getting back into it. So we just talked about transition areas, right?
Yeah.
So TSI, timber stand improvement, I'm going to try and kill two birds with one stone. With the chainsaw, with some buddies to help out. Like I said, my food plot is tough to sit on the edge. And it's tough because I have a hard time knowing or predicting where the deer are going to come out and hit that. So I'm going to make it a little bit easier for myself. There's a tactic called edge feathering, with the thought process of making your transition between a food plot and hardwoods or wetland to hardwoods, when you're changing habitats, to soften that edge. You almost want to think of making a terrace. So different stages of plants from one habitat feature to another. So I've got a food plot, but then it sharply goes into hardwoods. So you're going to walk the trail right on the edge of the food plot, and then there's going to be trees. And then you walk through that tree line, and boom, it's wide open hardwoods. So one of the goals, and that's kind of the transition area, but it's small. With that in mind, take a chainsaw, get in there, knock down trees that are less desirable or something that, animals and wildlife are not going to use, and I'm going to drop them. And I'm going to try and build that little staircase leading into the woods. With that being in mind, for me, trying to kill deer, I'm going to cut little doorways in, and promote trails coming in and out, and different staging areas. I want to make that better. I want to make that where they want to walk, make it easy for them. And then the places that are hard for me to hunt them, I'm going to drop trees and I'm going to make it hard for them to walk through it. So drop trees, stack them on top of each other, make it, nasty, gnarly. And when they want to get out to that food plot, they're going to have to walk on the trails I provide. And this is a good time of year. Get in the woods, cause a little disturbance. You're not going to hurt anything for the fall. But set yourself up, if you have the opportunity, to increase your odds. And that's kind of my goal here for the next month.
Only do this if you actually own the property, guys. Don't go do this on public land. Just
don't do that.
Announcement. That sounds like a plan, dude. Sounds like I'll definitely. You said we're doing this at the end of the month.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should be able to make it. I think that would be cool. And maybe while you're walking around talking to, figuring out where those trees are going, maybe I'll do a little shed hunting out there. I know you got a few bucks. That are they still holding out there on your cameras? Have you noticed?
So mostly they're holding, but there's a couple that are starting to fall.
Really?
Yeah. Even, at my house here, there was a bachelor group, and there were 5 of them, and one was fully shed. There was another bigger buck that had a half rack. But then there were 2 others that had, their full set. That was just a couple of days ago. But
do you remember? I don't think I ever put the video on the YouTube channel, but do you remember me showing you that video of when me and Bryce went hunting. That really nice buck that we had at like 30 yards, and he couldn't get a shot at it.
Yep.
You remember that deer?
I do.
That deer is a half rack, and he's been a half rack for, I don't know, 3 weeks now, and I keep getting pictures of him. Like a few times a week I'll get a picture of that deer. So I know he's hanging out somewhere nearby, and that other antler is laying. I'm just waiting for that second one to drop, and I'm going to get out there after that. But so that's kind of exciting. He's I don't know, 130. He might be a nice deer to go after next year. Yeah. You found a cool shed, didn't you?
So
over there.
My track record for shed hunting is not very good.
It's hard, man.
I'll just throw it out there. I struggle. But I found my very first shed this last season. And it was a cool one,
It was an amazing find, too. It was like literally 80 yards to the woods, and old, like not white anymore. Isn't it like it's like yellowed from the sun still? Like,
yeah.
I would have never saw it. And John's like, that's an antler over there. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he walks over and picks this goofy looking antler up, man. It was wild looking.
Yeah, it was cool. It had like holes in it. The way his antler grew. And it had like it looked like I don't know what you call it.
Club on the end of it or something.
Yeah, it had like a little teardrop looking drop tine on it.
Yeah.
It was real small.
Yeah.
Very cool. It got me. Hey, I can do this,
Yeah, man, it's fun, and if you ever get the shed hunting bug, there's been years where I don't have it, and but there's years that you get it, and you just like, usually I'll go out a few times, and if I strike out, 2 or 3 times in a row, I kind of lose motivation really quick. But if I do well one day, or I find a few, it's like, all right, I'm rocking and rolling. Let's keep going, But yeah, I'm excited for that to start. I'll probably, I usually get out, and that's the thing, timing it is so important, especially to keep up that motivation, because if I've tried to go out, like late February before, in the snow or something, and you're just not going to do well. Like, making sure, and it looks like we're going to have pretty great shed hunting weather here, because I think the groundhog saw his shadow. It's been like 60 freaking degrees every day. Yeah. So you want it to be, you really don't want any snow unless there's just a little bit and it's melting and it's showing you kind of where the deer are walking, but you can still see the bare ground. But you want it to be that dark, wet ground, as rainy as it's been, overcast, so that those white glistening antlers just like pop out to you, like pick those days. Those are the days you're going to do the best. And if you got cameras in the woods, make sure you guys are watching your cameras, because you'll know, you can't really bank on a specific time when all these deer are dropping, especially if you got a specific deer you're after, like the one over here on the Frank farm that I've been watching. Like, I'm not going to go in there while he's still got that half antler on and bump him to 2 properties over where he drops it when he's running away from me or something like that. I'm going to wait. And once he drops that, I'm going to go in and look for them all. And if you don't have trail cameras, I don't know. What do you think's a good time?
I always look at March Madness,
Yeah.
With the basketball coming up.
Yep. That's a good one.
The weekend prior to March Madness, when you're going to be sitting there, looking at your brackets fail. The weekend before is always a good time, and
that's how much I pay attention to basketball. When is March Madness start? Is that like mid-March?
I think it's right around St. Patrick's Day. Yeah. So
okay.
March
cool.
15th or 17th is St. Patty's Day. It's kind of when everything's is ripping and roaring.
I'd say that's a great time. You want to make sure. I have so many antlers that are chewed to shit because I found them in April, or something like that, or you find them in. So trying to make sure you're not bumping deer off your property before they drop, but also finding them before they get destroyed is a tricky thing. So keep that in mind. But I know, John, you haven't done a lot of shed hunting, but I like shed hunting a lot not only for the antlers. Like, finding antlers is fun, and I've said this in the past before. Finding antlers is great. It's exciting. It's kind of a good reason to get out. But the real reason shed hunting is awesome is scouting. Like, it gives you a reason to get out and put boots on the ground, especially all of that sign, all of that deer sign that those bucks laid down last fall, you know, all the tracks and everything is like right there for you to see. And you can walk anywhere you want. Go walk into all those places you never wanted to walk into, you know, and see what's going on, see what happened last year. You know, guys who go out and they're shed hunting and they're just heads to the ground and they're just looking for antlers and not paying attention to anything or whatever, or they're not banking that information. That's another thing, because I know for years I'd be out and I'd be paying attention to all this cool stuff. Wow, that's crazy. Oh, this is awesome. Look at this rub. Look at this, you know, giant scrape here, and look at this freaking beat down trail and this bedding area. And then by the time the next deer season comes around, I forgot about it, you know? And it's like the next shed season, I'm like, oh shoot, like I forgot about this. Why did I never hunt this last year? You know what I mean? So like making sure you're banking that information somehow. I use Onyx, you know, and I'm actually in the process of trying to figure out how to reorganize all my pins, because right now, dude, it's like a mess. I don't even know how to sort through it, dude. So I'm like going through here and there a little bit to try to like figure out a system, and I've been watching some stuff. So if you have any ideas, let me know, because I've been doing them by year, I think, and like color coordinating based on the year. But they're not in folders. I want to put them all in like separate folders so you can like just hide whole years so it doesn't look like such a mess, you know what I mean? But
yeah.
Anyways, that's what I use. A lot of guys like to use, you know, an actual notebook or whatever, but actually banking that information in scouting, using that time to actually become a better deer hunter. Because I think finding deer antlers, I think finding sheds, you find a giant shed, I really don't think that's going to do anything for you killing a buck next year. You know?
No.
I think you find a big shed somewhere, it's March or, you know, end of March or something like that. Like, you don't know what that deer was doing during deer season, and you don't have any idea what he's going to do next year, you know? So I don't think a lot of guys, maybe if you own 7,000 acres, you know, you'll know that deer's somewhere around there and he survived. That's the one thing it tells you. Oh, the buck I want to kill next year, he survived the winter, you know? But besides that, like tactic wise, you're going to be so much better off and you're going to learn so much more by actually scouting and paying attention. Like scouting is the number one priority. Antlers are second.
Bedrooms.
Yep, exactly. Finding those beds, finding those bedrooms, finding those spots that, you know, the things that always catch my eye. And, you know, I'll just say this real quick. Guys on podcasts, they always talk, and let me know if I'm talking like this, where they're like saying a bunch of things, but they're not like saying anything. Yeah. You know what I mean? And it's like, oh, scout, you know, how? Like, what are you looking for? So, like,
let me give you an example.
Go ahead, yeah.
So we had, I think it was the beginning of my rutcation, and we got the video of that one buck tending that doe.
Yep.
In that grassy swamp flat. I don't think I've ever spent a lot of time over there, but I'm going to tell you, when we go in February, we're walking that.
Oh, yeah.
We're going to comb it, and we're going to figure out what's going on over there.
Yep.
So there's an example of, you know, okay, we learned something from the season. Now is the time to get in there and really understand it and learn it.
Yep. Absolutely.
While looking for sheds, you know, maybe he's still bedded in there, and maybe grab his sheds. But really, we're going to get in there and learn that, how they're walking through it. I know that one nice buck that we grunted to, and he came at us and crossed the creek where I didn't think it was possible, but he made it possible. Yeah. Okay, let's walk that creek and figure it out.
Yeah, because we were sitting up there, and like you said, we had never walked over there. We didn't even know how deep that creek was all the way down.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, but he walked right across it right there, which I wouldn't have thought. I thought he would have had to come right past us. But yeah, using, I can get what I usually look for. Like if you're on a new property shed hunting, or you're on a property you've been hunting for years, and there's places you haven't walked, like John's talking about. Looking for rubs, man. Like areas of like condensed, like a lot of rubs, like in one little area, and usually that's a buck bed, and that buck laid those down through the month of October, late October, prepping, getting ready for the rut, because he's getting up out of his bed and he's making a rub on the way out, and he's making a rub on the way in. There's going to be, so the further away he gets from his bedding area, those rubs are going to be further apart because there's a lot more area out there for him to roam. But as he gets closer to his bedding area, you're going to see those condense and all get a lot closer together. So finding those kind of areas and finding the trails he's using to walk in and out of there. Really good example. Last year, I found out in a swamp, barely ever walked through it. Walked in there last year during shed season and found a giant bed on an island, probably like half the size of this room. Like this little island, it's all mucky cattail swamp, and it's like just this island with this tree roots, and there's like a little dirt and some grass growing, and it was just like down to the dirt from a deer bedding, or different deer, I don't know, bedding on this little hump fairly consistently, it looked like. And there were 2 trails coming in and out of that bed. Now that's something like, draw that on a map, figure out where those are, walk those trails. You might find a shed. If you don't, who cares? Now you know, like, that's a bedding area to be interested in. What wind is this buck using this bed on? Like, what, if you were that buck, what wind would you be here on, and which way would you leave based on that wind? And
that
putting
would also, that if it's in a wide open area that you can't really get super close, that would be an opportunity to sit on the backside downwind and do an observation sit.
Yeah.
See who gets up and gets out of there.
Yeah.
There's
that
opportunity there, right?
The other thing that's kind of a lot of people don't think about is like when you get in that bed, and that was an interesting one because I had hunted off in this little finger of woods, like maybe 70 yards from there several times. Like I've hunted there for years, and I never knew this bed was right here, but like I always get down in that bed. Like I'm not like find your buck beds like the whole world is right now, but like if you do find one, like get down in that bed and like you're the deer, look around, because I could literally see the tree and the branch that I usually hang my stand next to. Like he could look right at me, like, and he could be down in them cattails, and I would have never seen him, especially a windy day or something like that. So that made me, okay, next time I come in here and hunt, what's the first tree that, if there's leaves on the trees, I'm probably wouldn't be able to see. I'll be far enough away that if I do make some noise, he's not going to hear me. Like, what tree would I sit in based on this trail coming out to this bean field if I'm coming in, because this spot, it's a bed. He comes out of the swamp, walks through the woods transition area, and then pops into this bean field. If this is early October and I'm coming in, where do I need to stop expecting a buck to sit here? So keeping all that kind of stuff in mind and writing that in your notes, man, and mark a pin. This is the bed, and then walk to that tree that you picked out, and this is the tree I'm going to hang. I'm going to stay on the back side of it, and, keep all that kind of stuff in mind when you're shed hunting, because, that's just one example. But, and like I said, the rubs around that bed were just like, I don't know what kind of tree. They're just a bunch of these little shit trees growing in this cattail swamp. And there's just a little hump underneath each one of them, creating a little island, essentially. But they were all rubbed up, dude. And then all of the, like, willows, like the little, brushy willows were all rubbed up like crazy. There was just rubs like crazy in there. So I know there was a buck bedded in there or several bucks bedded in there. But just, yeah, scouting, man. Scouting. I can't stress it enough. And hunting the sign. So
Yep.
we always come back to that, but
We do. It's important.
yeah, it's probably the most important thing. Well, John, I mean, we got a lot to cover, but I think maybe this is probably a good point to end this one.
Yeah.
Um,
More to come. There's a
Yeah.
lot to. There's always something to do in the deer woods. We're going to be proactive in doing it. 2024. I'm already excited.
yeah, it flies by, man. Didn't it just
does.
seem like we
We're
were
in the
waiting
heat
for
of
our
it.
rutcation to come? Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Flies by. But yeah, and also, gobble gobble gobble. Turkey season's coming up, so
Coming up.
pretty pumped for that. I started seeing all kinds of stuff on social media, and it's like, man, slow down. I can't be this excited for the next 2 months before I'm
Yeah.
actually allowed to hunt. But yeah. So, well, thank you, John, for joining me. Thank you guys for joining or tuning in and listening to us ramble. Hopefully you take something out of it. Hopefully we helped you out and make you a better hunter. We appreciate it, and we'll see y'all on the next one.